what is up? In this video I'm going to show you how to do the bubble glaze technique. As some of you might know, I've already made a video on the bubble glaze technique and you can still watch it, so I'll leave a link down below. But in this video I'm going to answer all the questions that I've got from the other video, because I've got a lot of questions, and with a lot I mean like really much. So I'm going to try to answer all of these questions in this video while showing the whole process of doing the bubble glaze technique, and I'm also going to show you everything that can go wrong and how to prevent these things from going wrong. So I hope you're not left with any questions after this video, but if you are, just feel free to ask them in the comments or send me a DM on Instagram at @colorceramics and you can follow me there. So let's now start with things that you need to do the bubble glaze technique. There are quite some things you need, and there are also quite some things that can go wrong with the things that you need. So I'm sorry if I'm talking for a long time about the things you need, but these are just quite important things you need to know before you start doing the bubble glaze technique. So I hope it helps, and let's get started. The first thing that you need is just normal water. There isn't anything that can go wrong there, so that's a good thing. The next thing that I use is just normal hand soap, and there's actually one thing that can go wrong there, and that is that your hand soap can be too greasy. This mostly happens when you are using a hand soap for dry hands. But if your soap is too greasy, it can work like a wax resist, and that means that when you are going to apply your clear glaze over your bubbles, your clear glaze will not stick to the pot or whatever you're glazing, and if that happens, you're probably using a soap that's too greasy. So if you experience difficulties with applying the clear glaze over the bubbles, then there's probably something wrong with your soap and you need to look into it. The next thing that you need is underglaze, and there are actually 4 different brands of underglaze that I use. One of them is Bots, and I really like this color. It's called blue green, and I'll show you now a finished result picture of how it looks after firing. And I really like the color and it bubbles very well, so that's very nice. Another brand of underglaze that I use is from Myco, and it's called Fundamentals. These work very well as well, and they make very big bubbles in some way. But I have experienced that some of them get very light after firing, so you need to make sure you use a very dark color if you're using Myco underglazes. This is because you are bubbling with them, so there's actually way less glaze on your pot than when you're just brushing it on. But I've experienced that with Myco the colors get extra light, so if you want to use Myco, make sure you use a very dark color and your bubbles will get lighter. But do not use lighter colors, because lighter colors will kinda almost disappear. So that's not very fun. But I'm using King's Blue, and that is a very nice blue and it works very well. Another brand of underglaze that I like to use is from Emco. There's one problem I do experience with the Emco underglaze, and that's that in a lot of colors are small hard pieces of underglaze, and I'm not sure how it gets in there, but I've here a little example. And as you can see, it has these dark spots in it, and these are actually in the underglaze and they stick into your bubbles, so it doesn't give that nice and smooth effect. So that's kind of disappointing and frustrating, but yeah, that's something to think about when you're using Emco underglazes. It's not with all the colors, but with a lot of colors I've had it, so you can always try it, and they do have a lot of nice colors, but this is just a problem I've experienced with Emco underglazes. The last underglaze that I like to use is from Duncan. I'm not really sure if it's a popular brand, I don't really see it on Instagram, but it does work very well. These underglazes are for low fire, so like around 1000 degrees Celsius, but you can use them on 12-20 degrees Celsius, that's the temperature I always fire on, so that's stoneware. But you do need to try it before you're like going to glaze everything with it, because there is a possibility that the color will change if you fire it at a higher temperature. For example, one time I've glazed a mug with a low fire underglaze from Duncan, and I used a green color, and I got green bubbles, and then after it was fired they became brown. So you never know what to expect. It is also kind of an adventure, but you need to try it before you are going to glaze everything. And the next thing that you need is a biscuit fired piece, and there's one thing that can go wrong there, and that's if you fire your biscuit too high. Because if you fire your biscuit too high, your biscuit will get water resistant and your bubbles will not dry fast enough to get like these sharp lines. So if you experience that your bubbles just slide off and do not create nice and sharp bubble patterns, then you need to fire your biscuit lower. I always fire my biscuit at 1020 degrees. I've once fired my biscuit on 1040 degrees Celsius, and that was just too high and it was water resistant and the bubbles didn't stick at all. So I just didn't get any color on it when I did the bubble glaze technique. So that's something you need to keep in mind if you have any trouble with the bubbles to stick to your pot. Another thing that you need is a container, if that's what you call it. This is just to catch the underglaze that gets next to the pot that you're glazing. Because any glaze that you catch with the container you can just use again. So I prefer something that's high enough to keep all the bubbles in it. But if you don't have that, you can just use a plate or something, maybe that works too. But I prefer something that's a bit higher. Another thing that I use is a spoon. It's just a normal eating spoon and it's just for the measurement, so there's nothing that can go wrong there, but it's to measure the water and the glaze. And the last thing that I use is a straw. It's just a normal straw to blow the bubbles. So let's get started with the bubbling. To do the bubble glaze technique, I use 3 spoons of water. So like 1, 2, and 3. And then I add 3 drips of soap. So like 1, 2, 3. And then 1 little drip for a little bit extra of look. And then you can add the underglaze, and in this video I'm going to use the blue-green from Bots, as I've shown you before. So the first thing that you need is to mix it. You need to add 1 spoon of glaze. Just like this. And then you need to mix this. I just use a straw to do this. So what I do to bubble glaze is just grab the bowl or cup that you want to glaze, and in your other hand you take your mix of glaze, water and soap, and you just start with blowing the bubbles inside the cup, and then you turn it around as fast as possible, because the longer you leave the glaze in it, the longer the glaze has to drip down to the bottom, and which will give you a very dark bottom. So you want to turn it around as fast as possible. So I'll show you now what I do. So I just blow it in as fast as possible and then turn it around as fast as possible and just put it in the container. So here we go. I need to take a breath. And then you start blowing the bubbles on the outside. I always start at the bottom and then work upwards. If you start like at the top, the bubbles will drip down to the bottom and they will kind of slide over your cup, which will mean that the bubbles will not get a very sharp lines. So you need to start blowing on the bottom and then work upwards. And then the bubbles are now on the cup, so you just wait a second before the bubbles have dried. And then you can blow away the bubbles. And just grab your piece. Make sure your hands are clean when you grab it. And then you have your bubbles. So as you can see, there are bubbles on the outside and on the inside. You can use the glaze that's still in the container again. Just pour it back in the glass you are bubbling with. You do have to mix this before you use it again. On the cup there are like these little pieces of underglaze that are dried but are not like stuck to the cup. And you don't want these to get into your clear glaze. So what I like to do is just wipe it off with my hand. So I just go over it with my hand to get rid of any bubbles that are still left there. You can see there gets some blue on my hand, so make sure you wash your hands well. And I just wipe it off like this, also on the inside, so just wipe your hand around it. And then you can start adding your clear glaze. The clear glaze that I'm using is zinc-free clear from Amco. Sorry, my pot is a bit dirty because I've used it a lot, but it is for high fire, so it's for stoneware. That was it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you liked it and you learned something new from it. If so, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done it yet. And if you're going to make bubbles and you're going to share them on Instagram, please tag me at @ceramics because I would love to see your bubbles. And well, good luck trying it, and I hope this video helps you a little bit. Bye, have a nice week, and bye.